Thanks for joining us on the John Mendola Show. We're driven by McCarthy Tire and Automotive Centers. Well, let's talk with Dr. Joel Fuhrman, who's with us now. And Dr. Fuhrman, we covered northeastern Pennsylvania, central Pennsylvania, local athletes, college and high school athletes. So we're going to talk a little bit about nutritionally for them, but also for the general public on what they could do to be a little bit healthier. And you've written a whole lot of books about it and really an expert in the field. Tell us a little bit about your nutrition eating plan.
Well, thanks, and thanks for having me on. This is always fun for me and exciting to share with people. And, my message is that nutritional science has made dramatic advances in recent years. It's like now we can get a man to the moon in nutrition. The point I'm making is that we finally have the information. We could wipe out heart attacks and strokes across America. We can win the war on cancer. We know exactly what can be accomplished, how to accomplish it, and we have to start educating our population to put this information into action. Save some lives here. And they also think the thing is that, it's not just dying 20 years prematurely. It's that we're so unhealthy in America that it creates tremendous degree of suffering with diseases like autoimmune conditions like psoriasis and psoriatic arthritis and lupus and asthma and, inflammatory bowel disease. People and nutrition is intimately related with mental disorders like depression as well. So, we have a really over-medicated, suffering population with a healthcare crisis that's completely out of control and getting worse, with the most obese and overweight population, cancer, heart attack-prone population in the history of the human race. And we know how to get out of it, and we're moving in the wrong direction. And we have to really make a radical change in direction here. And that means education. People have to really learn the right information to protect themselves and take health into their own hands, because you're not going to buy good health with a bottle of pills from your doctor. We have to earn it, and it's lifestyle medicine and nutrition where the money's at if we're going to solve this healthcare crisis and, in part, and be able to have reduced tragedies and death and premature death in this country.
Dr. Fuhrman, most people may say, listen, I'm on this diet, I'm on that diet. You talk about a lifestyle change. This isn't just for a couple of weeks or a couple of years until you lose 20 or 40 pounds. This is something that you should do for the rest of your life. When you talk about the anabolic and catabolic phases, and you kind of get into that a little bit as to, how people may just crave something else or take something else or do this. Tell us a little bit about that.
Exactly. And, I know that we're talking about some of these concepts from my book, The End of Dieting, where we discuss these concepts. And the first concept you just brought up is that you can't go on a diet, because if you go, these changes have to be made. There have to be improvements in your diet style, and you have to make these changes for the rest of your life. You can't have short-term thinking, because going on and off diets is very bad for your health. The body needs consistency, and yo-yoing weight up and down increases risk of cancer with going on and off diets. That's the first point you made. The second point is the catabolic and anabolic phase, that we have periods of digestive cycle where we're absorbing nutrients from foods, assimilating them into our body for later use. And then we have periods when we're not digesting and absorbing, but actually utilizing what was stored, and that's called the catabolic phase. So it's the anabolic phase we refer to when, like, you're filling your car with gasoline, you're storing up the energy in the gas tank. That's the anabolic. The catabolic phase is when you drive the car until the gas tank is empty, you utilize the fuel, that's when we burn things off. And the thing to remember here is there's two important points. One is Americans don't enter the catabolic phase sufficiently. They're always built in the anabolic phase. They keep feeding their face every minute, and the reason they have to continually overeat and eat too often is because the nutritional quality of their diet is so poor that they don't feel well in the catabolic phase. They feel shaky and weak. They feel headachy and stomach cramping. They feel anxiety and irritability because the nutritional quality of their diet is so poor. And the catabolic phase is when people most actively repair or detoxify or heal. We can't heal in the anabolic phase. That's the feeding phase. We heal when the body's not busy digesting, when the liver and kidney can devote itself to eliminating toxic waste products. And because the diet is so toxic and they're so malnourished, we build up a high level of aldehydes and other metabolic wastes and nitrogenous waste that make us feel, when we start to eliminate too much waste in the catabolic phase, people feel like they got to eat. They feel so uncomfortable they have to eat again. So people are forced to continue to overeat. They don't feel well unless they overconsume calories to halt the catabolic phase. So they have to become overweight. So it leads to all Americans becoming overweight, and it leads to a failure of all diets on the marketplace. Diets don't work because they're telling people to eat less food, and they're not telling people to eat more nutrients. We have to eat more. We have to get more nutritional quality, and I call it, there's two. We call it nutrient density and also nutrient adequacy are two different things. One is referred to consuming a lot of nutrients per calorie, and the other is getting the wide spectrum of nutrients the human body needs for optimal health. And only when we fill both those pies, only when we get both in nutritional density and broad nutritional spectrum of everything we need, can our body stop over-craving calories. And diets that then are destined to fail. They're inevitably going to fail because we didn't meet our nutrient needs, and then we're going to have perverted cravings and desire to overeat and binge and pig out and keep eating and snack, and then we have these popular diets that tell people to eat all day long. People can't stop putting stuff in their orifices. You know what I mean? It's like it's crazy, and we have the most overweight and obese population in the world. And the authorities say 67 to 68% of people are overweight. And I'm saying that that's not true because that's based on a BMI of above 25 as being overweight. And in reality, anything 23 and above should be considered overweight. And that classifies over 85% of the population as being overweight. And those majority in the normal weight category are sickly. They're sick people that keep like they have depression or alcoholism or drug abuse or cold cancers or digestive disorders or autoimmune conditions or depression. They have some disease process that's usually keeping them in a normal weight because those diseases cause you to lose weight. The point is that I'm making now is that the American diet as it's traditionally consumed is deadly, obesity and overweight causing, and has to be modified.
We're talking with Dr. Joel Fuhrman, family physician, best-selling author, nutritional expert. Dr. Fuhrman, you've talked about this in the past. Some people say, well, I need to have 5 or 6 small meals a day. And you say the opposite of that. You need to have 3 meals a day. You actually need to slow down the metabolism. Tell us a little bit about your philosophy.
That's exactly correct. I mean, people need to snack and eat 5 meals a day because their diet is so poor. And because their diet is so poor, we just was mentioning about the catabolic phase, they can't tolerate how ill they feel if they don't constantly put food in their mouth. But that's demonstrative of a person not eating a healthy diet. A person not eating a healthy diet needs to eat frequently to feel okay. But once your nutrient needs are met with a diet of higher nutrient density and higher nutrient quality, then you have no desire to eat when you're not hungry. And then your body becomes a precise computer giving you the sensations of wanting to eat, and I call that true hunger, when you want to eat, when food tastes great, with enhanced taste sensation. Then you desire less calories, you don't want to snack, you want to wait till you're hungry to eat the meal because that's when the meal is going to taste the best. My point here is that you don't have to diet. You just have to eat an anti-cancer diet style, and then the body will naturally and instinctually gravitate to desire the amount of calories you biologically require, and all people will then gravitate towards a perfect weight for them that maximizes their health, their looks, their longevity, without yo-yoing their weight, without thinking about their weight. Forget about dieting, forget about how much you weigh, you don't have to worry about it. Your body will take you there automatically, and you won't feel like you want to eat between meals. You want to eat when you're hungry, and when you're hungry, it's a time that the body's saying, I need food or I'll get too thin. You follow me?
Absolutely. So your eat to live method to break those cravings, what would that look like for somebody out there?
Well, I use the acronym GBOMS so people can easily recognize those foods I want them to eat regularly, because these foods have certain nutrients the human body needs to normalize its tissues and normalize its immune system function. And the word GBOMS stands for greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, and seeds, like flax seeds, chia seeds, sesame seeds, sunflower seeds. So I want people to get a major source of their fat intake from nuts and seeds, which have these protective anti-cancer and phytochemical absorbent lignins and sterols and stanols. I want people to eat at least one large salad a day, And the big raw salad is the main dish once a day, and I wanted them to put tomatoes and onion on the salad and maybe some shredded cabbage and other solid vegetables, root vegetables. I want to make one large salad a day. I want them to use some of the dressings that use nuts and seeds in the dressings, because those nuts and seeds facilitate the absorption of those beneficial anti-cancer nutrients. And the same anti-cancer nutrients, it's called anti-angiogenesis effects. In other words, they're which means they prevent the growth of new blood vessels, and that means they're anti-fat storage effects. And the pro-angiogenesis foods like sugar and animal fats and oils, they promote the growth of blood vessels to not just fuel fat, but to fuel the growth of dysplastic tissue, tumors, and cancers, and the spread of cancers. So these anti-angiogenic foods, the point I'm making now, is they say, no way, Jose, I'm not letting you store fat on your body, because the same hormones that promote fat storage promote cancer, and the same foods and chemical milieu that doesn't let fats be stored prevents cancer from replicating. It's the same thing. So it's very difficult for a person eating sufficiently of this healthy cornucopia of superfoods. If you're eating enough of the healthy cornucopia of superfoods, the body won't let you store fat. It will take away the desire to crave and to binge. So we're, instead of going on these crazy diets and trying to exercise like a mad person, or cut calories and starve yourself, or eat just meat and cancer-causing fat, thinking of the carbohydrate restrict, you don't do any of those things. All you got to do is really focus on eating more of the right food, and then more of these anti-cancer foods, and you get reduced appetite, reduced cravings to eat between meals. You'll start to get in touch with true hunger. You'll be in touch with how many calories you need. You'll enjoy eating more, not less. You'll be satisfied with the right amount of food. You'll feel like you get more pleasure from eating. You'll enhance your taste and your smell and your sight. Your senses will improve as your health improves, and the weight will fall off people's bodies. So the point is that that modern nutritional science makes every scientist in the world, every legitimate nutritional scientist agrees on these three basic principles. Let me just say this quickly, that there's no controversy among the thousands of diet books out there. There's no controversies remaining among nutritional scientists, because there's too much evidence right now. And that is, number one, we have to eat more produce, more vegetables, fruits, beans, nuts, seeds, onions, mushrooms. We have to eat more whole plant foods. Number two, we have to cut out the processed carbohydrates and the oils, or reduce them dramatically, like white sugar, white rice, white flour, and processed oils. Because those are called empty calories. We have to get the empty calories out of our diet to eat more nutrient-rich calories. And number three, we have to lower the amount of animal products we're eating, because animal products promote hormones, especially IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1, that can promote the excessive growth of tissue, and that means the proliferation and growth of cancer cells. So we have to reduce animal products, increase plant food, and get the junk food, the processed foods out of the diet. Not complicated, may not be what people want to hear, but it's what works, and it can revolutionize, obviously, society and solve our healthcare crisis, which is never going to happen in Washington. We can't legislate it. We can't pay for it. People have to earn it, and we've got to really re-educate our population, because what's happening now is that people are doing things they're trying to believe nonsensical things that are based on what they want to hear. And they have to recognize that science and nutritional science has made tremendous advancements, and now those advancements are saying, you guys out there, you got to change what you're doing and eat differently right now. Got to do this together.
Absolutely. We're talking with Dr. Joel Fuhrman, #1 New York Times best-selling book, Eat to Live, and he has many other books as well. And Dr. Fuhrman, you're also a nutritional researcher, and when you talk about that, it's almost we could relate this to all of us in our lives. That it's forgiving in the sense of, if we look to our higher being and say, okay, we're forgived of this. You kind of relate to that in the sense of, if you've eaten rotten for 20 years or 33 years, you can be forgiven in the sense of, if you have heart disease, you could actually reverse it.
Well, certainly heart disease is a reversible condition. High blood pressure can come down. People can get rid of their diabetes. They can get off their cholesterol-lowering drugs. They've been misinformed, and they haven't been properly given the proper information to make choices, because they're given these pills and that they have to be on these medications for the rest of their life. And they don't realize that these medications don't just have serious side effects. But they can actually increase, but they can, for example, blood pressure medication is going to increase risk of cancer. It's been well documented. Like calcium channel blockers, one study showed a doubling of breast cancer in people taking calcium channel blockers 10 years or more. We're talking here about, pushing your diastolic blood pressure too low can increase risk of sudden cardiac death, and statin drugs can weaken the heart, causing heart failure over many years and increase the risk of diabetes. These drugs have serious problems associated with them, and they don't work as well as lifestyle medicine and the aggressive and advanced changes, advances in nutrition we're talking about right here. And I'm not saying we're going to wipe out all people who have cancer, but I'm saying if we start early enough in life, we can stop people from getting cancer. Now, once they get cancer, yes, we can increase their survival. Some people's cancers can get better. We don't know what can happen. Enough studies haven't been done yet. But I'll give you one example of one study to show you that the power of this. They took women with breast cancer, right, and they followed them for 10 years. And they followed how many lignans they ate. And lignans come from flax seeds or chia seeds or sesame seeds. And those that ate a third of a milligram a day of lignin had a 71% decreased mortality over that 10-year period from breast cancer. 71% decreased death rate for those having a third of a milligram of lignans. Now, a third of a milligram is nothing. People with cancer should be eating 20 milligrams a day, not a third of a milligram. Because 1 teaspoon of flax seeds has 7 milligrams, not 1 milligram in it. And these people only have a third of a milligram. And we've already seen that that prostate cancer can reverse itself as people increase their seed intake, but nevertheless, to higher levels, to 1 or 2 tablespoons a day. But nevertheless, we didn't even need the greens and the onions and the berries, all the other cancer parts of the diet. It was just from the seeds alone I'm talking about. There was, and imagine if we started doing this before people got a diagnosis of cancer. In other words, these interventions are always more effective the earlier in life you start it. The more advanced the pathology and advanced the condition, the harder it is to get a predictable reversal. So look at the study on mushrooms and breast cancer, which showed that women who ate mushrooms 10 grams a day had a 64 lower chance of getting breast cancer, and those that combined green tea or green vegetables with the mushrooms had an 89% lower rate of breast cancer compared to the population not eating the regular mushrooms and greens. So we're seeing here that we can still get dramatic degrees of protection. That protection is still available to a degree with people who already have a diagnosis of cancer, but of course it's more available when you don't have it, the earlier in life you start it. And to reiterate, with regard to heart disease and diabetes, type 2 diabetes, these conditions can be reversed and more effectively treated with diets, with well-designed diets than they can with drugs.
And Dr. Fuhrman, to clarify a little bit on my question there, what I guess, if there was somebody who had cancer, have studies show that, if you are eating dairy products, so you're at the grocery store, you see somebody who may be suffering from cancer, and they are eating dairy products and meat, that's only going to help promote that more instead of try to help reverse that?
That's correct. In other words, the studies, for example, let me give you an example of one study. They followed about 58,000 people for 18 years, and they found those in the highest quartile of animal product consumption had a 300% increased risk of cancer, or 4-fold increased death rate from cancer over that 18-year period. And that in the highest quartile of animal product consumption was about the level of animal products consumed by most Americans. Whereas compared to and we're talking about 4-fold increased risk comparing the 30% of calories from animal products that most Americans eat compared to 7.5% in the lowest quartile of consumption, which is really more with what is commensurate with longer populations and the blue zones around the world and people who live with the centenarians when we get more elderly people. All those societies eat less than 10% of calories from animal products, whereas Americans are eating about 30% today.
We're talking with Dr. Joel Fuhrman here on the John Mendola Show. We're driven by McCarthy Tire and Automotive Centers. Dr. Fuhrman, you've coined the phrase nutritarian eating. And for those athletes out there, what are some things they could do to be more of a nutritarian? And I think you've mentioned this before. People may be hitting the protein powders and really getting the meat to try to be bigger and stronger and faster. There's a whole lot of plant foods that can help you attain that.
That's right, and when you get more of the protein from plants, you get the protein packaged with more of these phytochemicals that boost your immune function. And I was a professional athlete. I mean, I was third in the world in pairs figure skating with my sister in the 1970s. I was second in the United States in 1973. But the point is that is that I know what it's like to be a competitive athlete. I've advised world-class and Olympic athletes for many, many years. And a lot of these athletes follow my protocols because they don't want to miss training. They don't want to be sick. And, they look, for example, and they want to be able to continue their practicing and not get hurt as much. And all these things, especially your ability to bounce back from and not get viral infections and lose training time. But the point here is that as we get more of these high protein and plant foods such as hemp seeds, sunflower seeds, black beans, azuki beans, red kidney beans, Mediterranean pine nuts, sunflower seeds. In other words, as we eat these foods that give more performance, that are from whole plants, you get a full spectrum of nutrients in the same package, as opposed to using whey protein and isolated soy protein, which are more isolated without the protective spectrum of other nutrients that come along for the ride. So it's very important to give that broad spectrum of nutrients so athletes aren't just plocking down the meat and isolated protein supplements and thinking they're going to be okay, because what they're going to have, number one, they're going to hurt their long-term health, and number two, they're going to increase the risk of getting sick and losing training and missing out on their events. For example, I'll give you an example. Eric Schroppe is a world-class skier who was in 4 Olympic Games and followed a Nutritarian diet. And he carried his Vitamix with him, and his trainer, made him the shakes with the greens and the berries and, and the seeds in there. And then he's traveling, from country to country, competing in, ski races. And the point is, if he's going to be sick in bed for a week or two, he could lose $500,000 because these people are paid based on a cumulative points from one race and another race added on. And after you're sick in bed for a week, you can't perform that well anyway. The point is, it could cost these athletes a huge amount of money if they get sick in this training, when people coughing in their face and traveling on planes and shaking their hands. They have to keep their immune system strong. And this is where we use a Nutritarian diet, which means a diet rich in nutrients in the amount and the width, to make sure we maximally support human immune function. And that's where, I have a book called Super Immunity written about that these athletes often read. And of course, you mentioned Eat to Live, which is my best-selling book. And then my newest book is called The End of Dieting, which has a lot of this more recent research in it.
Dr. Fuhrman, you talked a little bit about, I think you could still do 20 pull-ups at your age, which is outstanding. Everybody could kind of shoot for that. But when you talk about 3 meals a day, what would be the highlights of those? And then for an athlete when they train, maybe they're doing weight training or some type of cardiovascular workout, whether it's the morning or the evening, what are some of the key meals right before or right after for some of those?
Boy, you just asked me a lot of questions. How do you know I could still do 20 pull-ups? How do you know that?
I heard you recently.
Well, I'm still in pretty good shape. I'm 61. And I love to mogul, ski, play tennis. I stay in really good shape because I enjoy sports, and I like to stay physically active and physically fit. And if you don't work out, you're going to get hurt on the ski slopes. You're going to get hurt on the tennis court. To be able to go jump, fly down moguls and bounce on powder and steep slopes and stuff like that. You have to have strong legs and be in great shape with your back and your legs and your midsection. So I keep fit. But I love it. I love the fact that I can do the same things I'm doing now in my 60s I did in my 20s and 30s with no loss of performance or strength, because obviously you don't age as fast when you eat healthy. So that's really exciting. It doesn't matter what they're eating right before, because obviously they're supposed to be eating hopefully all the time. But after the workouts, they put a good work in, and they should certainly get that complement of different types of plant amino acids from their meal. So we're talking about after the workout, when you actually have a meal that has some green vegetables, beans, and seeds in it, nuts or seeds, you get maximum benefit of the muscles. And what people don't realize, that when you get more protein from greens and beans and seeds, it actually helps build the endurance, not just the strength of the muscles, but the muscles have more endurance. See, strength is one thing. That's like a person lifting how much bench weight they can lift on a bench press, but that's not the whole thing. In those sports, you're not sitting there and lifting 400 pounds. You have to keep jumping up and down, running up and down the court for a whole hour. You know what I mean? You need to have the stamina in basketball or tennis or skiing. You got to have the muscles have, not just strength, but the stamina to maintain that strength, and that's where this more broad spectrum nutritional base really comes in and helps in those kind of sports. You have to recognize that the linebackers on football team who weigh over 250 pounds have a much higher risk of early cardiac death and their overall lifespan is very short compared to the receivers and the tight end, people on the ends running, receivers running down the field, or in other words, or other athletes. So being like a power lifter or a linebacker, in other words, size is not the ultimate goal. It's fitness, stamina, power, speed, and it's agility, endurance. These are the things that lead to better, longer life, not just how big you're going to get. So this preoccupation with animal protein and size is not really a good thing for these people's long-term health.
Dr. Joel Fuhrman, he's been on PBS, Dr. Oz. He's a national best-selling author, a family physician, a world-class athlete, and a nutritional expert. We thank you so much for your in-depth conversation with us to help us a little bit more to be healthier, and we hope to talk with you again soon.
Sounds great. Thanks so much, John. Take care, and to all your listeners, wishing you all, much happiness and great health.
Dr. Joel Fuhrman here on the John Mendola Show. We are driven by McCarthy Tire and Automotive Centers.